Hi guys, Elena Vince here, physical therapist with Great Lakes Pelvic Rehab and Oxbow Health and Wellness. Here with a lovely fireside chat to talk to you about urgency and urge incontinence. Now, a lot of people are really familiar with stress incontinence, which is when the bladder leaks with a higher pressure activity like coughing, sneezing, laughing, jumping on a trampoline, picking up something heavy. That is more related to the pelvic floor range of motion, strength, and coordination. If it's not keeping up with the higher pressure demands from above in our core, then that's when the leakage occurs. We're not going to talk about that today. We're talking about bladder urgency and urge incontinence. This is when you feel that urge to go pee and you have to go right now. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. Or you don't make it. Whether your bladder is partway full or all the way full and you feel like you're going to burst, you're walking to the toilet, you're opening the door, you're seeing the toilet, you're starting to shimmy your pants down, and your bladder doesn't make it, and some urine comes out. This we treat differently in terms of retraining how the brain and the bladder communicate versus stress incontinence, which is more pelvic floor range of motion, strength, coordination. So let's talk about this. Now, our bladder is always continuously filling. It's filtering, or it's collecting all the food that the kidneys are filtering. It's always filling a little bit. When the bladder fills to about 100, 150 milliliters, about yay much, sends a signal to our brain saying, I could go to the bathroom right now. What we want the brain to do is to say, okay, bladder, I hear you, but I'm doing something right now. I'm wrapping up some notes. I'm folding laundry. I'm doing something. So that urge goes away. Then the bladder continues to fill. And then it fills to maybe 400 or 600 milliliters, depending on the person. And then that signal comes back stronger, saying, hey, I need to go to the toilet right now. To which the brain says, oh, okay, let me wrap up the task I'm doing, and then we will go to the bathroom. But what happens is when we answer that first urge to go pee, when the bladder is not all the way full, then the bladder goes, oh, okay, this is when we're supposed to empty. So then that first call to go pee comes on sooner and stronger. So it's only a little bit full, but it's ringing all these alarm bells saying that you have to go right now. Now, what we want to do is retrain how the brain and the bladder communicate. So we do that a few different ways. We can calm down that first urge or increased urgency in general. I'm thinking to long road trips where that next rest stop is just a little bit too far away and I've had too much fluid and I feel like I'm going to burst, where that urgency is very, very real, but I still don't want to wet my pants in the car, right? All these strategies help to calm down that information signaling between the brain and the bladder so the urgency doesn't feel like it's so much. What we want to do is try to distract ourselves. Think about something other than waterfalls. Finish whatever task you're working on, folding laundry, sending that last email, making your lunch, something to that effect. Distract yourself, think about something other than bathroom and bathroom habits. If you're able to, sit down. Having some pressure on your perineum, or that area that you wipe when you go to the bathroom, can help to silence the bladder and calm down that urgency. I think back to when I was a kid, I used to always sit on my foot if I had to go pee really bad while I was in class. That does the same thing, right? Having that pressure there can help to quiet down that signaling. You can do some Kegels or pelvic floor contractions, but you want to be aware and cautious of how you do these. So a pelvic floor contraction or a Kegel, they're the same, is when you think about doing a squeeze and a lift with your pelvic floor. It's like trying to draw a marble up into your vagina or into your rectum. Now, what you don't want to do is clench and hold. And you're thinking, don't go, don't go, don't go, don't go, don't go. Because those muscles are going to fatigue on you. And then they're going to give way and it's going to guarantee leakage. What you want to do is think about contracting, relaxing, contracting, relaxing. You do that 3 to 5 times, making sure you relax after the contraction, and that can help to quiet down the bladder by that pelvic floor activation. The third way is my favorite way because I think our bodies are so neat. You go up and down on your toes. So you are standing or sitting or even laying down, and you think about lifting your heels up and coming back down, lifting the heels up, coming back down. That way you are activating your calf muscles, which are activated by your tibial nerve. Your tibial nerve helps to activate those calf muscles, but also makes a pit stop at your bladder. So that can help to quiet things down. This always makes me think of kids doing the potty dance where they're holding their crotch and they're dancing around on their toes. It's because it helps to quiet down that urgency. It works. You don't need to do a million of these. You don't need to do them with any sort of resistance or weight or speed, but just doing some gentle activation can help to calm down that urgency. All else fails, your bladder is about to burst and you're not quite to that rest area. Think about doing some good breathing and releasing muscle guarding around your abdomen. Okay? When we have to go really badly, what we have a tendency to do is to clench in on our bellies and our pelvic floor, and we're holding it. But if you just do a big breath into your abdominals and you just kind of let your pelvic floor and your abs relax, that can help to quiet things down. And this feels really counterintuitive. It takes you a while to get there. And you're not pushing out. You're not pushing out on your belly or pushing down on your pelvic floor. That's not going to go well. But if you just think about trying to release that tension, so you're flopping your belly, you're dropping your pelvic floor, that can help to quiet things down. Okay, so let's say you have that first urge to pee. You know you haven't peed in a long time. You haven't had that much fluid since then, but that urgency feels very, very real to you, which it is, because their bladder is sending off alarm bells. Try to delay 10 to 15 minutes using any one of those strategies or combination. Wait that 10 to 15 minutes and then see how you feel. If you don't need to go anymore, great, continue on with your day. Let that bladder fill a little bit more. If you still need to go, but don't rush to the bathroom. When you are power walking or jogging to the bathroom, then the bladder goes, yay, we're gonna go. And the organ itself starts to spasm, and that can cause leakage too. You want to walk calmly to the bathroom. If that urgency starts to ramp up as you get closer to the bathroom, or you start to open that bathroom door, stop in place, breathe, do some Kegels, distract yourself, go up and down on your toes, do something to bring that urgency down at least one notch where you feel like you're in control again. Once you feel like you're in control, keep calmly walking to the bathroom. You could be looking right at that toilet, which is maddening, and feel that urgency start to ramp up. Stop in place. Just let everything calm down. Talk positively to yourself, saying, no, I've got this. I can hold my urine in until we are over the toilet. Go up and down on your toes, breathe, do some Kegels, and then once that urgency comes down a notch, sit down on the toilet. This is really challenging. It's a lot of mental power, especially once you've leaked once. It's really easy to go into that panic mode of thinking it's going to happen again, and you don't want it to happen again. But this retraining works. Takes a little bit of practice, but it works. Now, these same strategies work really well if your bladder is crazy full, you're about to burst, you've got all that abdominal pain as you're getting to that rest stop on the side of the road. Same strategies apply. Make sure you just calm down that system. It's not going to tamp down that urgency as effectively because your bladder is very, very full. It is very stretched, but it can at least calm things down where you're at least not going to leak on the way to the toilet. Okay? Now, what we want to do in terms of how frequently we go during the day is another question I get a lot. Some people say, oh, I don't go that often. I only go every 45 minutes during the day. That's too much. There's no way you're drinking that much water that is hydrating to your system where you're urinating that frequently. The goal most of the time for myself, for my clients and my patients, is every 2 to 4 hours. Okay. I think once you get to the 4+ hours, you're probably not very well hydrated, and we'll get to that in a minute. But generally, for me, myself, I'm hydrated pretty well. I aim to pee about every 2 to 3 hours or so. So if you are someone that goes every hour on the dot, start trying to space that out by 15 minutes at a time. If you can get to an hour 15 really readily, try to space it to an hour and 30, then an hour 45, so on and so forth. Okay. Everyone has a different strategy for how they like to do this. Some people like to write it down as they go to hold themselves accountable so that they know when they last went, and they just keep a pad of paper, on the toilet at home if they're working from home, or if they're at, out and about, they keep an app on their phone with a bladder diary or just a note on the phone. That works fine. Other people just kind of keep a mental note. So they say, okay, it's about 2 o'clock. I just peed. I'm going to try not to pee until at least 4 o'clock. So if you feel the urge to pee at 3:15, try to space it out a little bit. Now, sometimes people really misunderstand me saying defer the first urge, and they think I'm saying defer all urge. That is not the case. If you defer all urge, you're going to pee your pants, and you need to urinate at some point during the day, especially if you are hydrated. You're just trying not to go with that first signal, and we're trying to calm down the intensity of that first signal. But at some point, I expect you to go pee. Please go pee. You don't need to delay all urge, okay? Now, another thing to consider is you don't want to go pee just in case. This one is so hard for so many of us, myself included. We are all very well trained animals. I was taught never miss an opportunity to pee. If someone's peeing, you're going to go pee because we're not all going to make repeated stops on the road trip, right? When we go pee just in case without an urge to go pee, the bladder gets confused again, right? It says, oh, every time I hear the keys because we're going to leave the house, now I need to empty. I don't want that Pavlovian response for you because it's just going to make everything kind of wonky, right? Now, in pelvic floor world, we say never, ever, ever go just in case. It confuses the bladder all of the time. I say within reason, right? Because life gets in the way. Now, if you're in an office and you've got regular meetings and you're thinking about going pee before every single meeting, that's probably not the best, right? Because you know that there is a bathroom down the hall should you chug an entire canister of coffee and you really have to go. Sure, fine. But the bathroom's right there. It's not going to be an emergent case. If I'm going on a long road trip, for instance, I just drove across the entire country, I'm going to sort of go pee just in case. I'm going to try to time my fluid so it's appropriate and it's not an entire going just in case scenario. But I will go if I don't necessarily have the urge and I know I'm about to drive for 4 hours before we hit our next rest stop. Sure, fine, I will go then. But I'm thinking it through, right? I have a tendency to get increased bladder anxiety if I'm going to go for a hike because I pee on the sides of the trails. It happens. But I don't want to do it a ton. And especially if it's a trail I don't know, it's going to make me anxious of, is there going to be a place where I can kind of, scoot to the side? Is it going to be really crowded? Something like that. So if I'm going on a short hike and it's nearby and I know it, I kind of think through it. Where if I hear my husband grab the keys and say, all right, let's go, I go, ooh, when did I last go? I only went 20 minutes ago. I haven't had that much fluid since then. We're only going to be gone an hour and a half, 2 hours. I won't go pee just in case. But if it's going to be a longer hike, or even if it's the same hike nearby, and I go, I don't know the last time I went pee. It had to have been at least an hour ago. Since then, I had lunch. I had soup for lunch with fluids. I had water. I don't feel the urge to go pee, but I'm probably going to have to go soon. Then I will go pee just in case. Okay? You see the difference? I'm thinking it through instead of making it an automatic habit. Okay? Now, this will be the instance where I maybe count my pees, which means how long I'm peeing for. This is not a perfect science. I know that. My 10-second pee might be different than your 10-second pee, but it still kind of gives a reference point. So what you do for a test is when you go pee and your pee starts hitting the water, you count 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, and then you see how many seconds it takes you to pee. Our goal is to pee for at least 8 to 10 seconds, ideally closer to 12 to 15. but at least that 8 to 10 second threshold. If it's less than that, your bladder probably was not very full and it was sending you really strong signals when it wasn't very full. So that gives you that frame of reference. Okay? So this does not mean you need to count every single one of your P's from here on out. I don't want you to have that new OCD. But it gives that good frame of reference if you are going pee just in case, or you're wondering if that really strong urgency was a miscommunication from your bladder, or if you really did have to go. If you feel like you really have to go and you go, well, heck, I didn't go that long ago, but you pee for 22 seconds, okay, you probably had to go, and you probably also had some bladder irritants that irritated it and made you feel more urgent. But that gives that good frame of reference so that then you can start retraining your brain and your bladder communication going forward. Okay. Now for me, I do not count every single one of my P's. I count them if I'm trying to catch myself going just in case, or if I think it's going to be a world record. 47 seconds. A little dribbling near the end, but very long time. Very, very full bladder. Anyways, back to the task at hand. We want to make sure we're hydrating well, and we want to make sure that we are not guzzling our fluids. When we guzzle our fluids, it does go straight to the bladder. It's going to make you have to pee a lot more, right? But we want to hydrate for all of the tissues in our bodies. We want it for our skin and our hair and our heart and our lungs and our kidneys and our colon and our muscles. All of these tissues need fluid, which is why we drink water. If you sip that fluid somewhat continuously or on a pattern throughout the day rather than guzzling a ton all at once, then that fluid goes to those tissues, which is what we want. So some people will get to the end of the day and they'll say, holy cow, I didn't drink any fluids, and they'll just chug water. Yeah, you're going to go pee pretty quickly. And I do that. It happens. I talk a lot for my job. I'm very, very active. So sometimes I do get to the end of the day and I say, holy cow, I didn't get to stop at my desk after talking to 8 people in a row. And then I'll guzzle some fluids. But it also helps to try to pace those fluids out a little bit more throughout the day. So our goal in general is to try to get around 64 to 80 ounces in a day of hydrating fluid. We'll get to that part in a second. So there's all kinds of opinions on this one of drink half of your body weight in ounces, drink only 64 ounces a day. There's a lot of wiggle room. Most of the time with my patients and clients, I'm trying to get them to 64 to 80 ounces of hydrating fluid in a day. Now, if there's any sort of heart condition or swelling issue and your doctor tells you to drink a certain amount, that trumps whatever I say. That is obviously a medical complication that goes into that. So don't guzzle 80 ounces of water a day if you're restricted to 54, right? Some nuance. Now, hydrating fluid does not include bladder irritants. Most common bladder irritants include caffeine and acidity, like in coffee. It can include carbonation, like in the soda pops or seltzer waters. Acidic fruit juices, like pineapple juice or orange juice. Alcohol is definitely a bladder irritant, a couple ways over. Artificial sweeteners like aspartame, like in the Diet Cokes, those can be very big bladder irritants. There's also a big lengthy list of other things that can be bladder irritant. There's also a long list of foods and other beverages that can be bladder irritants, but at a lesser degree, or just kind of depends on the person, like if you have interstitial cystitis or painful bladder syndrome. But those are the most common ones that I cite for people. Now, just because something is a common bladder irritant for a lot of people does not necessarily mean that it is for you. And even if it is for you, it doesn't mean don't drink it. It just means be aware that it might not be as hydrating as you would like. For me, if I have caffeinated coffee, I'm going to pee in 20 minutes. It is the biggest bladder irritant to me on the planet. But I love seltzer waters. They're my favorite go-to at the end of the day if water's starting to get kind of boring. And those, it depends. So if I haven't had a lot to eat that day, I haven't really been very hydrated, and I drink a seltzer water, it's an irritant and I'm going to have increased urgency and go pee more frequently. But if I have that seltzer water after I've had a meal, I've been fairly well hydrated that day, it doesn't bother me at all. So there's some nuance to this. So pay attention. Now, some pelvic floor therapists, and this is initially what I did, would say, okay, let's say you had 100 ounces of water in a day, but 20 of those ounces were coffee. You only had 80 ounces of hydrating fluid that day. I don't do that so much anymore. I'm not convinced that that's exactly how the body works. I haven't really found anything to prove it one way or the other. But generally, what I do for myself and for my patients is I just don't count the bladder irritants. So if I have 100 ounces of water in a day and I have 20 ounces of coffee, I just don't count the 20 ounces of coffee. But to me, that's not hydrating. I know it makes me pee a ton. So I'm probably not absorbing it into my body. So there's no hard and fast rule here. Just pay attention. And if you notice that coffee is a huge bladder irritant for you and it's making you pee and it's making it more urgent, then tweak around how it affects that urgency. Maybe you go down from 2 cups a day to 1 cup a day. Or maybe you alternate sips of coffee with sips of water so it kind of dilutes down that acidity and that caffeine. Maybe you go from a full caffeinated beverage to a half calf. I don't think you need to get rid of all your bladder irritants. I think you just need to be smart about it. If all day you're only drinking coffee and pop, then yeah, we have some adjustments to do. And we need to get a little bit more water into your system. But just play around with what your current pattern is and try to just decrease the bladder irritants where you can. Make sense? Okay, so we talked through what urgency is. We talked through urge incontinence not quite making it there. We talked through strategies to decrease that urgency and calm down that bladder a little bit. Those are all really, really good things to work on. Okay, and it's doable. It's so doable. Some folks catch on quicker than others, or their bodies catch on quicker than others, I should say. But if it doesn't catch on right away, don't fret. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that in terms of brain retraining and bladder retraining and just trying to talk yourself through it and be positive about it. I've had some folks recently that just really struggled with this, and they're saying, Elena, I'm doing all of the strategies. I'm going up and down on my toes. I'm doing the Kegels and I'm relaxing. I'm breathing. I'm doing all these things. And all I can think is don't pee, don't pee, don't pee, don't pee. And they're just like, and sometimes I make it, but sometimes I'm still not making it. Now, this makes me think back to my golf game, which is really hit or miss, right? Like golf is a whole interesting sport. But I found, if I'm on the tee box and I'm looking at a hazard and I'm saying, don't hit it in the water, don't hit it in the water, don't hit it in the water, my brain hears water. And then I hit it in the water, right? But if we change that script a little bit and make it positive and makes it easier for our brain to understand. So instead of saying, don't hit it in the water, I say, hit the fairway, hit the fairway, hit the fairway. Now am I going to hit the fairway? Who knows? My shot's kind of all over the place. But you get the point, is if you think about where you want to go versus where you don't want to go, that can help your brain and your bladder figure it out a little bit better. So instead of saying, don't go pee, don't go pee, don't go pee, don't go pee, when your brain hears pee, you say, I've got this, I'm in control. I've got this, I'm in control. I'm not going to pee until I get to the toilet. I'm going to walk calmly, right? How we talk to ourselves makes a huge difference. Okay? This is doable. This is very treatable. I've seen this urge incontinence really increase a lot, especially with the pandemic, when people are working from home and the toilet's like right there, right? There's no reason to delay. So people have gotten trained to go pee on this regular basis, like every hour at the top of the hour when they put their computer down or something to that effect. We can retrain though. This is very doable. Give it a try, practice, stay positive. You can definitely get this under control. Good luck.